Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat here with a Toonami news update for today, April 7th, 2021. Now, usually I do these updates on Tuesdays, but I had a weird feeling we're going to get some big announcement come up today, so I withheld it for a day, but I was horribly wrong. We got no big announcement today, so basically, without further ado, here are Toonami's ratings for this past Saturday, April 3rd, 2021. Let's start at the top of the block. First off, we have Final Space before the block at 10:30 at a 0.15. Then at the top of the block, we had Dragon Ball Super at a 0.15, Attack on Titan at a 0.15, The Food Wars at a 0.12, Fire Force at a 0.12, Black Clover at a 0.11, S, 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 Gridman at a 0.10, Naruto Shippuden at a 0.09, and the Demon Slayer at a 0.07. Overall, this was a very samey week. Virtually most of these either held steady or just moved 1/100th either way. And really, and this is actually a bit troubling considering the previous 2 weeks we had March Madness games go through like 12:30 or so, which would explain people not watching Dragon Ball Super, as it's still low this week at a 0.15. However, the last game on March Madness, I paid attention, ended like around 11:15 p.m. So it did not overlap with Toonami, and the fact that the numbers are still low is a pretty troubling sign overall for the block. And again, that raises a lot of questions. Like, you could say, well, Dragon Ball Super is Dragon Ball Super, but let's look past that. Attack on Titan is going to hold steady at a 0.15. And right now, I think based on what's in front of it, it's doing basically maximal potential. Because Dragon Ball Super as a rerun is not pulling in numbers that it did when it originally aired. When it originally aired, this episode of Dragon Ball Super probably got like a 0.35, instead of a 0.15. And you really don't see much precedent. I think all I can remember exactly one time ever where a Dragon Ball Super rerun got built on by the show after that. We had weird times back when we had a 7-hour-long block where we had Kai as a rerun, then Super was new, and then My Hero Academia was airing at 10 o'clock for some reason. It was a weird time back then, fall of 2018. And then after that, Food Wars, you can't say much. It's at a 0.12. I almost already forgotten that it's airing new episodes on the block. And then you have Fire Force at a 0.12. Same thing. I've been saying Fire Force is kind of the one show it's easy to forget it's on the block. And then Black Clover, right in the mire still, I believe, of filler at a 0.11. It went up a little bit, but that's not saying much. And again, these shows are overall held back by the fact that the block starts with the Dragon Ball Super rerun at a 0.15. It's being held back ultimately by that. And that's the biggest issue of the block right now. And then you have SSSS Gridman actually building upward 1/100 to a 0.10. I think this is only the second separate time that Gridman went up from week to week. I think it started like 0.11, then went to like 0.12, then went down to like a 0.10, then down to a 0.09, then goes back up to 0.10. And even with the time it was airing on the block at 2:30 in the morning, it probably is going to it actually did set records for worst nearly anything ratings related for a premiere in Toonami history right there. And then after that, you have Naruto actually going down to a 0.09. So that's one more teeny tiny victory SSSS Gridman gets to leave with. It does not get built on in its last episode. It only goes up to a 0.09. And then Demon Slayer at a 0.07. I think we're getting near the end of that rerun. We're getting near the end of part 1 of the final season of Attack on Titan. I don't know. I think we're running out of episodes of Fire Force 2. We're getting towards the end of that season. Food Wars, I think we still have plenty of episodes to go to. Black Clover, there's like a lot of episodes. I know we have got an announced end episode. Like Japan, I think they've ended or they've announced the episode they're going to end the series on. So ultimately, there's an expiration date on that. So I think I did the math and thought around the end of this calendar year is when we're going to be done with Black Clover. But of course, depending on how Funimation's dubbing works, if they're going to stay afloat in that way, we might have issues there. And that raises questions too, because there's still a few spots that are coming up soon. We have Dragon Ball Super, which is I guess the people in charge of scheduling Toonami are very stubbornly claiming claiming it can still hang on to be a lead off show, which these ratings show it cannot. But there is kind of an out coming up soon. I believe season 5 of My Hero Academia started a couple weeks ago in Japan, and inevitably that will be on Toonami. Season 5 of My Hero Academia, that's a matter of when rather than if that's going to be on the block. And it's going to be interesting to see if they make the decision to make that the lead-off show. Since we do have precedent of My Hero Academia premieres leading off the block, that might be an option that they take, and that would be a really good choice if they do that. And another thing is that we have the Promised Neverland coming to the block, season 2, at 1:30 in the morning, and that's going to be, I guess, a replacement in shorts of SSSS Gridman. That's coming off the block. We'll probably never see it again. People talked about, well, the sequel season just started. I'll give you right here. I know Toonami has a precedent that nearly, with the exception of Mob Psycho, nearly every sequel has aired on the block. I do not think we're going to see Dinozen or something like that. I do not think we're going to ever see that on Toonami. Ratings for this were too low. It's too obscure a name of a series, I think, for Toonami to really pick up on. And I think this was just in general a small experiment that failed in the 2:30 slot. But again, and you have Promised Neverland coming to the block at 1:30, and people are saying how this is one of the worst second seasons of any anime in history. This is the biggest dropping of the ball in anime history. But I distinctly remember that chatter only started like the last few episodes of the season. During the first few episodes of the season, I didn't watch it, but the chatter I heard from it was like, it's a bit different from what I expected. It wasn't as negative on it. And part of that's the reason why I think the ratings aren't going to tank for Promised Neverland Season 2. I think it's going to hold steady if the show's around it. So considering that Dragon Ball Super is still going to be on the block next week, probably pulling another 0.15. Attack on Titan's probably going to pull in 0.15. And I think when you get to 1:30, I think the Promised Neverland will pull in a 0.12. That's my official prediction on that number. And another Toonami-related news. First, I want to tie something a little bit onto the Promised Neverland. Something that someone I know pointed out to me something weird with when they did like the official promotion last week of like Promised Neverland coming next Saturday on a Toonami. It did not air the promo until during the commercial break of Naruto Shippuden. As in, if you watched the premieres and you focused on just the premieres last week, you did not see this promo. So Promised Neverland Season 2 would come completely as a surprise to you, which makes it interesting because that might be a sign that Toonami knows there's a controversy behind it, and they're worried they're not going to get the ratings. And it might be one of those things where, like, let's just kind of bury it. And a lot of TV networks do this where they burn off shows or they bury shows that don't have a positive reception just to fulfill a contract. And look, they've got Promised Neverland for 11 episodes. They spent money on 11 episodes. They're going to air those 11 episodes. They're probably just going to... I would not be surprised if when we have a replacement for Demon Slayer, that'd be something like... What I could see happening is that when Demon Slayer or Attack on Titan goes off, whichever one's first, that's when they announce, we got My Hero Academia Season 5, which is a guarantee at this point. Maybe Dr. Stone Season 2. But if it's My Hero Academia, they'll push that to the starting block, shift the schedule around, and use that as an excuse to throw Promised Neverland to the SSS Gridman slot of 2:30 in the morning. They're gonna try to bury this, but still air it, because they think maybe this does well, but it probably won't. So they're not going to give that much to it. So I would not be surprised if a few weeks from now everyone forgets it's even on the block. It's going to be one of those types of treatments. Don't expect any promos for Promised Neverland Season 2 after this current promo. With that being said, I got one other notable Toonami adjacent news, and that is the announcement of Stone Ocean. Stone Ocean being made into an anime. This was obviously expected for the longest time. The dub actually got announced. I forgot. I remember reading who they got to voice the certain characters. I don't recall recognizing any of the names right off the bat, which I find to be interesting, you know? Honestly, partially thought they were going to try to get, like, Erica Mendez to be Pauline. That would have been interesting. They didn't do that. But nonetheless, I'm excited for it. There's no announcement for being on Toonami yet, but again, the first 5 parts of Jojo aired on Toonami. again, and just like My Hero Academia, just like Dr. Stone, it's more of a question of when rather than if. But it's going to be a little later. We're going to get My Hero Academia. We're going to get Dr. Stone Season 2 long before Stone Ocean. But we're almost certainly going to see all three at some point. What do you guys think about this Toonami news for this week? What are your opinions on how the shows are doing? What's your thoughts on Stone Ocean being the dub announced? Its odds of being on Toonami? Leave your comments, leave your opinions down below. I appreciate reading your stuff. I am Super Orange Cat, and that is all.